What's happening? Happy Monday to you and yours. Thanks for joining me as always. Man, oh man, we have a lot to get to. But before we get to anything, we are live today doing this podcast. We might have a couple of recorded podcasts on the way. Going to be making a trip down to Virginia Beach over the next week and a half. So there's probably going to be at least a couple of recorded podcasts. So be ready for that. I'll let you know at the top of each podcast if it's recorded. Going to try to go live as much as possible, but there will be content. There will be content at 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can bank on that. I'm going to get to the game later. The original idea before I went to bed last night was that this was all going to be about the football game yesterday. But then a bunch of stuff has happened over the past 12 hours that we have to cover. So there's lots of news. Let's start with the quarterback situation. Is a quarterback switch about to happen? It was interesting. Jerod Mayo made his usual rounds with the media today. And when he was talking with Greg Hill and company on EEI, he was, of course, asked about Jacoby Brissett, the quarterback situation, Drake Maye. He was asked, when will Mayo make a decision? When will he make a decision about whether Brissett or Maye will start on Sunday? Mayo said, quote, we'll see how it goes. So right off the bat, that's a very different answer, right? When Mayo is asked, when are you going to make a decision between Brissett and Drake Maye? What Mayo has said in the past is Jacoby Brissett's our quarterback. We are 100% in on Jacoby, things like that. Today, that changed. Today, it was, we will see how it goes. Another question on EEI. Do you feel at this moment right now Brissett still gives you the best chance of winning? Here's how Mayo responded to that. Quote, we haven't had our full staff meeting today. That's a conversation not only at that spot, but all the spots of how to get better as a football team. We're not playing well. It's not a secret, unquote. So again, he's given a chance. Do you feel at this moment right now Jacoby gives you the best chance to win a football game? And Mayo is hesitant. He says, we haven't had our full staff meeting today. We got to get together. That's a conversation, not just for that spot, for all the spots. So Mayo, again, kind of tap dancing around, telling people whether or not Jacoby's the guy. Much, much different than how he has handled the media the past few weeks. Again, WEEI, Mayo was asked if he risked the locker room if players wanted a quarterback change. And after praising Brissett, Mayo said, quote, this is a solution-based business. We have to find solutions, unquote. So pretty much every single chance Jerod Mayo had today to tell me that Jacoby Brissett was going to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots this weekend against Houston, Mayo passed. Mayo did not say that Brissett was going to be the starting quarterback. We have to look at things. We have to talk about things. Was unwilling to say that, Jacoby Brissett gave them the best chance to win. That is much, much different. Much different. That's a clear shift. And the translation is rather obvious, right? We got to talk. But Drake Maye starting is absolutely on the table. And I think Drake Maye starting is on the table now more than it's ever been. These prior conversations that Jerod Mayo has had with his coaching staff, the prior conversations that have happened in that locker room, I think right now, Monday, October 7th, 2024, 3:04 Eastern time, in the PM, not the AM, I think right now we can say that Drake Maye starting a football game for the Patriots in their next game is more likely now than it has ever been. Listening to Mayo deal with the media, things have shifted. He is obviously getting closer to making Drake Maye the guy. Now, a couple of things. One of my caveats from the beginning of the conversation of Maye versus Brissett has been, if you lose the team, you've got to move, right? If you lose the team, you've got to change things. If the Patriots, if in that locker room, these players want Drake Maye to be the guy, if they've seen enough of Jacoby Brissett, if this team doesn't believe that Brissett can win games, if his teammates are out on him, you've got to make the move. I might not love the idea of making the move when it happens, as I've said, And I'll get to that in a few minutes of how I feel about this and when I would like to see Drake Maye start. But if the team is out, the team is out. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. You cannot keep playing Jacoby Brissett if the locker room knows that he should not be out there, because then you lose the team. You lose everybody else in that room, and you cannot risk losing everybody in the room. So if the players say it's time to make the move, you make the move. And I know we say, oh, well, Nick, the head coach has to make the call. In the real world, when the players look at the two quarterbacks and they say, yeah, that guy is better than that guy, we've got to move on. Then you've got to move on. If you continue to play Brissett and you tell the rest of the team that if you are the better player, if you practice better, then you're going to be the one that plays. If you keep telling the team that story, but yet at the most important position on the field, all the players are seeing Drake Maye outplay Brissett, or they see Brissett and say, come on, man. Come on. The ceiling isn't nearly high enough for us to continue to play this guy. Then you are in danger of losing the football team. And for a first-time head coach, a second-time, technically, offensive coordinator, and for DeMarcus Covington and for Elliott Wolf, they have a lot to prove. And they're not going to sit back and allow the locker room to say, we've got to make a change here and not make the change. And that's been a caveat for me since day one. There's no wiggle room on that. If the football team, if those guys that are playing for you every Sunday, if they've had enough of Jacoby Brissett, then you have to make the move. You have to make the move. The guys know. Now, as far as Brissett and his play, he hasn't been good. The last 2 weeks, he's been bad. Against San Francisco, he was terrible. Against Miami yesterday, he wasn't much better, if better at all. And when you look at him now that we've had 5 games, when you look at Brissett and you compare him to the rest of the league, he's been worse than I thought he would be. Clearly has been worse. 29th in passer rating. The only quarterbacks that are lower than Brissett in passer rating are Will Levis, Bo Nix, and Anthony Richardson. Brissett is 28th in QBR. Now, I'm not sure if that number was heading into this week's games or if it was after yesterday's games, because there's no indication from ESPN. So Brissett might have been 28th in QBR going into the Miami game, which likely means he's even worse. Brissett is also 18th in the NFL in completion percentage over expected. That's a number that I always go to, right? That's an analytic I love to use. You have a completion percentage, what is expected of you via the play call. But how much better is the quarterback than what is already given to him? And Brissett is 18th in completion percentage over expected. He's a minus 0.4. So he's not even giving you what he should be giving you. And he's had the 9th longest time to throw, by the way, 2.9 seconds. Taylor Kyles does great work for CLNS. He posted this with some video of Brissett yesterday. While Brissett's effort versus pressure and questionable play calls was valiant, there were too many plays left on the field. Missed third down conversion opportunities due to late inaccurate throws, 2 potential scores to poke, and a shot to Pop Douglas where he led the wide receiver into coverage. If you guys remember that long pass to Pop Douglas in the game, right? Towards the end zone. If you look at the All-22, and Taylor Kyles has posted this, look at the All-22 video. Pop Douglas is open. He is so open. That should have been a big gain down to inside the 5, if not a touchdown. But Pop is running towards the pylon pretty much. Brissett leads him kind of upfield. Terrible throw. Golden opportunity. Brissett hasn't been good enough. The final play, right? The final play of the game. Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback of the Patriots right now because he's supposed to be smart. He's supposed to understand game situations, not get frazzled, not get rattled, right? What happened yesterday? Final play of the game. What's he do? He throws the football to Hunter Henry away from the sideline, so time expires. You can't make that throw if you're Brissett. That is such a low IQ decision by the quarterback. It's inexcusable. And when you're playing a veteran, because he's supposed to be the smartest guy in the room, because he's supposed to understand what to do given certain circumstances and situations, and he throws the football down towards more the middle of the field than the sidelines when you've got like 10 ticks left to the game and you have no timeouts. That's a ridiculous decision, a ridiculous throw by Brissett. And he might have had other guys open, including Pop Douglas, who was streaking towards the sideline. Just brutal. His third quarter play, where he dumped it down to Ramondre Stevenson on a swing pass. That play to me is one of the biggest concerns that I saw yesterday. You want to know why? Because the pocket was there. That was a clean pocket for Brissett. He had a clean pocket, but he did not trust anything. And immediately he looks over to Ramondre Stevenson on a big play and swings it to him for a loss of 2 yards. That was a decision made by a quarterback that was in his own head. His internal clock had sped up. That was not a quarterback that was surveying the field, diagnosing what he saw, going through his options, and then methodically, in a calculated way, finding the right guy to throw to. That was I got the football, and like within a second, I already was getting rid of it because I thought the whole pocket was going to collapse, even though it didn't. And those plays are concerning. What about the offensive line? We'll get to the offensive line. We will get to Jabril Peppers. We will get to Alex Van Pelt. First, I want to get to some of these super chats. And by the way, as you're hanging out, if you want to jump to the front of the line with a question or a comment, be my guest. You can send a super chat. Also help me out financially, of course. That will get you to the front of the line. Kyle Kirk sends the $10 super chat. Curse of the captain patch. Unit is in shambles. Yeah, not great. Mayo has to take control of his team. He can't delegate to AVP anymore. This team is held down by coaching as well as talent deficiency. Thanks, Nick. The coaching is egregiously bad. It's been egregiously bad the last few weeks. And DeMarcus Covington, I don't think he was as bad as his counterparts yesterday, given the hand that he was dealt. But again, we'll get into Van Pelt, and I am going to destroy Alex Van Pelt today. So if you're waiting for the Alex Van Pelt evisceration, it will happen sooner rather than later. But we've got to get through some of this news first. Van Pelt stunk out loud again yesterday. He's a major problem. Major problem. And we'll break it down better than anybody. We'll go through the thought process or lack thereof. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. While you're hanging out, don't forget, take a second of your time. Doesn't cost you any money, but click that thumbs up for us on this YouTube channel. When you hit the like button, that helps us beat that algorithm that YouTube sets up. It's the only way we can do it. It's the only way that we build this community. So don't forget to give us that like, that thumbs up as you're watching. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Even if you don't like what I say, throw a comment in because comments mean the world to the algorithm. Let us know, would you start Drake Maye right now? Let us know how you feel about Jacoby Brissett's play. All those comments will help us. And as I always remind people, subscribe. If you love the content, subscribe with us. Trying to get to 4,500 subscribers. We are pretty much stuck in neutral at like 4,340 or so. So let's try to get that up to 4,500. I appreciate every single one of you. Anonymous with a $9.99 super chat. Is it time to take play calling away from AVP and fire him at the end of the season? I would not take play calling away from Van Pelt right now, but I'm getting closer to that. I'm getting very, very close to that point. I would likely give Van Pelt 1 or 2 games with Drake Maye to see if the play calling can match up with the more talented quarterback. So when Maye gets out there, you see how that kind of works out, the communication between the rookie quarterback and Van Pelt. Does Van Pelt with the higher ceiling get more out of the offense? Are they scoring more points? I think the last 2 weeks you can certainly argue, and this is not to say Van Pelt's been good. Again, we're going to smash him later. But you can argue that Brissett has cost his team points the last 2 weeks. Now, last week it didn't matter because, you got stomped by San Francisco. But yesterday, it mattered. I mean, that Jalen Polk touchdown, that wasn't a touchdown because of a ridiculous rule. Brissett makes a better throw there. It's a touchdown. And Polk was open earlier. But he waits a little bit too long. He misfires high. And there you have it. So just that one throw. Chris Chapman's all in with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Chris. # PlayMay100. So he's in on that. Justin, TF Patriot, got a bunch of super chats rolling in here. I'd rather watch May go down swinging as a gunslinger that can also run and make plays. Brissett is upsetting, Justin, missing open guys. Hashtag Nick's beer money. I appreciate you, Justin. Yeah, it's infuriating. It's infuriating to watch Brissett play. The last 2 weeks, no excuse. He's been bad. And we know the offensive line, but I'm talking about plays that are there for him to make. Steve Nardillo says, lost faith in AVP. Thanks for the $5 super chat, Steve. If we move on after the season, where does that leave May and others with having to relearn a new offense? So this is the bigger issue. I was actually talking to my wife the other day about this. I think it might have been yesterday. The bigger issue is if you get rid of Alex Van Pelt, now Drake Maye is going to have to deal with a second offensive coordinator in 2 seasons, which is not how you want to start out with a rookie quarterback. It's what Belichick and company did, obviously, with Mac Jones. You started with Josh McDaniels. Things went pretty well rookie season. Then you came back with Patricia and Judge. That was a disaster. So then you came back with your third offensive coordinator in 3 seasons, and that did not go much better with Bill O'Brien. You want consistency for a young quarterback, and immediately, if Van Pelt can't find his ass with 2 flashlights, with 2 hands and a flashlight, and you're stuck saying, see you later, goodbye, Alex Van Pelt. Now you're going to have Drake Maye working with his second offensive coordinator in as many years. The silver lining is that you do have a couple of options on this staff. So you could make a change there, and you could just slide Ben McAdoo into that play calling spot. He's been around May since the beginning. TC McCartney, quarterback's coach, who was well thought of in the league when he got hired. He can be a play caller as well. I don't know if you want to put that on McCartney's plate, this quickly, but you do have some on-staff options that might mitigate the difficulty of changing offensive coordinators during the season. Anthony Bennett, $5. Thank you for the super chat. What's your Mayo mutiny meter? Mayo mutiny meter. I don't know. Maybe like a 6. Maybe a 6. Because I do think players on the team, they're looking at Brissett. They're looking at the O-line, especially through the first few weeks. They're looking at some of the injuries. They're looking at Van Pelt. I think they would give up on Van Pelt quicker than they would give up on Mayo. So I'm not going bananas just yet. I'm probably at a 6, but we'll see. D. David 1, the $5 super chat. Thank you, David. Give Jacoby a week off. Put him on the injury report. Put May in. Dude's got to be sore. Then you can go back if Drake flops. See, I disagree with that, David. If you make the move to Drake Maye, I think you've got to stick with Drake Maye. You don't want to mess with his mentals. You don't want to throw him out there to bench him and then just go back to Jacoby Brissett. That'd be a disaster to me. Like that Chicago Monday Night Football game when you played Mac Jones, then you took him out when he apparently and obviously wasn't physically ready to be playing in that football game. You threw him out there anyway, and when he struggled, you then benched him for Bailey Zappi, and you had the entire crowd during Monday Night Football chanting Bailey Zappi's name, and that was the beginning of the end for Mac Jones, frankly. I mean, that was pretty much it. You toasted the dude mentally. So I think once you go to May, you've got to stick with May. Once you go to May, you are telling the team that you're going with May because he's the better option. I don't want to go flip-flopping. I don't want to flip-flop with Drake Maye and Brissett. If you go to May, you stick with May. Okay, couple more things before we move on to Jabril Peppers and that awful story that came out today. What about the offensive line? One of the things that I have been talking about, I've been consistent, the offensive line has to be at least not a 5-alarm fire to put Drake Maye out there. And I said last week that I came to the conclusion that the offensive line needs to be at least at around 40% pressure rate before I put Maye out there. Because if it's 50%, 56%, that's an all-out disaster. So what about the offensive line? Well, yesterday, Vidarian Lowe came back. Vidarian Lowe, of course, was the starting left tackle during camp, and then he got hurt. He played the Cincinnati game after playing like one practice. He was okay given the circumstances, which was going against one of the best pass rushers in football, and Trey Hendrickson, and he was obviously not 100%. He was all right given that. But then, of course, he was hurt again, and he just hasn't been able to get going. Yesterday, Vidarian Lowe was at his healthiest. So you had your starting left tackle back. Michael Jordan came back. Jordan's been really good. Michael Jordan's been really good this year. Then you had, of course, Nick Leverett, who had to sub in for David Andrews. You had Onwenu back at right guard. Interesting decision. Don't hate it. Onwenu back to right guard. And Trey Jacobs right tackle. Now, when I was watching the game live, it felt to me, I don't know if it felt to you, throw a comment in. Did it feel to you like the left side was holding up? When you were watching that game yesterday live, was your reaction that the left side of the offensive line wasn't too bad? That was my reaction. My reaction watching the game was, hey, Vidarian Lowe and Michael Jordan are doing a pretty good job on the left side of the offensive line. My other reaction while watching the game was, holy crap, Nick Leverett is getting destroyed. And if you listen to this podcast, on Friday's podcast, previewing the Dolphins game, if you remember, I mentioned that if there was one thing I was concerned regarding that defensive versus offensive line matchup was the fact that the Dolphins had not one but two interior pass rushers who were top 20 in the NFL in pass rush win rate. Calais Campbell was top 10, and Sealer was also in the top 20. And I mentioned on Friday's podcast that those two guys could make life miserable for Nick Leverett. And Nick Leverett would have to hold his water. Nick Leverett did not hold his water. He got destroyed. He gave up 10 pressures. 10 pressures. I thought it was going to be tough. I didn't think it was going to be that tough. Michael Onwenu gave up 4 pressures. This is according to Doug Kide, who has the stats from Pro Football Focus. So Leverett gave up 10 pressures. Onwenu gave up 4 pressures. Jacobs at right tackle only gave up 2. Michael Jordan gave up 1. Antonio Gibson gave up 1. Hunter Henry gave up 1. And did you know that Vidarian Lowe yesterday did not give up a single pressure? So watching live, it's confirmed by these numbers. Vidarian Lowe and Michael Jordan were good yesterday. Left tackle, left guard gave up a combined 2 pressures. 1 pressure. Jordan gave up 1. Lowe gave up 0. You gave up 1 pressure between your left tackle and your left guard. Great job by the left side of that offensive line yesterday. Where you got crushed was Nick Leverett, right? Giving up 10 pressures, and Michael Onwenu giving up 4. I think Onwenu will get better. He's getting his sea legs again at guard. Again, it was a tough matchup with that interior defensive line. I trust Michael Onwenu will be a good right guard. So Vidarian Lowe and Michael Jordan with Michael Onwenu, now you feel like, okay, you've got 3 of the 5. Right tackle, center. Jacobs only gave up 2 pressures yesterday. We'll see how he does as we move forward. But Doug Kide tweeted that Brissett faced a 43.8% pressure rate. Again, my number was 40. If you get to 40, I'm okay with Drake Maye playing. If you can get this O-line to 40% pressure rate. But the devil's in the details. Phil Perry posted that the Patriots gave up 18 pressures on 37 dropbacks. That's 49%. However, you have to look inside the numbers. The average time to pressure. So 9 of the pressures on the Patriots yesterday happened in less than 2.5 seconds. 6 happened in under 2 seconds. Those are bad reps. Those pressures are bad. So 9 pressures were under 2.5 seconds. In the NFL, you can't have it. So 9 of the 18 pressures, half of the pressures, according to Phil Perry, would be quote-unquote bad pressures. But you look at some of the other statistics. The average time to pressure yesterday was 2.96 seconds. So even though you had 18 pressures in total, Jacoby Brissett had almost 3 seconds on average to throw the football, which means Brissett had a really good pocket a lot of that game. Several extended snaps ended up resulting in pressure. Perry counted 5 pressures that occurred with at least 3.5 seconds after the snap. That's not on the offensive line. So 5 pressures that occurred at least 3.5 seconds after the snap. 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. If you get a pressure because it took longer than 3 seconds to create that pressure, that's not on the O-line. That could be on the play call, but mostly that's on the quarterback, folks. So you can credit Brissett for a number of those pressures. You could actually credit Jacoby Brissett for at least 5 pressures yesterday because there were 5 pressures that he had the football in his hands for more than 3.5 seconds. That's inexcusable. That's on the quarterback, whether he's scrambling, he doesn't get rid of the football quick enough, he doesn't see it quick enough. That's on the quarterback. And when you look at the second half, 3 of the 5 pressures that were that long were in the second half. And when you look at the second half, there were 10 non-pressure dropbacks in the second half versus 8 in the first. So the offensive line got better as the game went on. The offensive line gave Brissett more time as the game went on. So not everything is on the offensive line. My point of view was, hey, you see 40% before you start Drake Maye. If you take those 5 pressures of at least 3.5 seconds and you have 13 pressures on 37 dropbacks, that gives you 35%. So if you wipe out the 5 pressures that to me aren't even pressures, they're not on the offensive line. If you take out 5 of those, right? Those 5 pressures, the pressure rate yesterday was 35%. And think about it this way. Nick Leverett was responsible for 9 or 10 of those pressures. So the quarterback holding it forever and your center is the reason why you didn't end up having a really good day in pass protection. And I know a lot of people, right? And I'm going to get to Peppers. I'm going to get to the game. I know a lot of you get annoyed or frustrated with the offensive line, and I do too. And I know many of you might get annoyed by me at times when I talk about the offensive line because I try to remind everyone the offensive line that we've seen through the first 5 games of this season is not the offensive line that was expected to play. That's not the vision of this football team. 7 of the top 8 offensive linemen have been hurt, are still hurting, or left the team due to mental health. And people think that's excuse making. It's not. There's a difference between excuses and reasons. And to me, the reason why the offensive line has been an unmitigated disaster isn't because the vision just didn't work out. It's because we have all these guys that are hurt and you're constantly shuffling. So you have no continuity up front. It's not to say that the starting offensive line would be good or great or terrible. The simple point I have made is that we haven't had a chance to witness the actual starting offensive line. We haven't had an opportunity to evaluate the starting offensive line. And so you might never get that opportunity. But what I can tell you is a player like Vidarian Lowe, I'm not telling you Vidarian Lowe is going to be good. He might end up sucking wind. He might be brutal. Vidarian Lowe might end up being one of the worst left tackles in football. But I am going to evaluate Vidarian Lowe off of his play, not off of his name. And some people, they want to burn the village down immediately when things aren't going great. You got to take a breath. So again, I'm not telling you that Vidarian Lowe is going to be awesome or bad. I'm going to see how he plays. God forbid. So I'll give you an example. Doug Kai tweeted out that Vidarian Lowe has the highest pass blocking grade among all tackles, right tackle and left tackle. Lowe has the best pass blocking grade from Pro Football Focus this week. Out of every tackle that's played, up until tonight on Monday Night Football. Vederian Lowe literally was the best pass protecting tackle in football yesterday. Not telling you that's going to continue. But how many people were, oh, yeah, Vederian Lowe, as you were getting ready for yesterday's game? Oh, Vederian Lowe's going to be different. Oh, yeah, he's going to help out. He didn't give up a single pressure. So the truth is, aside from Nick Leverett, the offensive line yesterday was more than good enough. Leverett is a problem. But Leverett was good against San Francisco. So he was good against San Francisco. He was awful against Miami. Can you find the middle? Can you find the middle for him? The line came out healthy, some continuity, which is good. Hopefully they can run out the same 5 guys next week against Houston. But the players, if they're questioning it, I understand the change. You roll. You roll with the change at quarterback because you can't lose the room. Now, what would I do? If you haven't lost the room, I would not play Drake Maye this week. You want to know why? Because I'd like to see another week of the offensive line together, but also Houston, will preview the matchup on Friday, but Houston's pass defense is just outside the top 10. D'Amico Ryans is legitimate. That Texans defense is tough on the pass. So I don't think that's a great spot to throw Drake Maye in. When would I start Drake? I think if you look at the Jaguars game in London, which is not this week, but the week after, that's a better spot for Maye. So unless you've completely lost the team, I would be targeting starting Drake Maye in London against the Jaguars. Hopefully the offensive line stays healthy, and you see this offensive line with continuity and health get better, and then you throw Drake Maye up against the Jags, who have not been good against the pass. Not a very good defense. That's what I would do. All right, we'll get to Jabril Peppers in a second. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. All the thumbs up as you watch on YouTube help us beat the algorithm. Your comments do as well. And if you like the content, then make sure you help us out and subscribe. A couple more super chats before we get to Jabril. IV_213, $5 super chat. Thank you. According to Tankathon, we're in position to get the first overall pick. If that happens, would you prefer to trade it or stay put and make a selection? So if I were the Patriots, and look, we're a long ways away, but I get it, IV, because I'm going to admit I have started to look at Tankathon. If you were wondering, 5 weeks is pretty much the point. I'm looking for a franchise left tackle, right? Unless Vederian Lowe plays at the level he played yesterday, and all of a sudden we're talking about, a really good left tackle, Vederian Lowe, then right now, if you asked me, I'm looking for that franchise bona fide left tackle, the Campbells, the Banks, those guys, right? So if you get the first overall pick, to me, it depends on how, if you traded, how far down would you go? Because I don't want to trade out of a position that allows me to land the best offensive tackle or, one of the top 2 offensive tackles. You obviously are not going to draft a quarterback. That helps because if you drop down to pick 4 or 5, how many quarterbacks go in the top 4 or 5? If there are 2, fantastic. So you might have, let's hypothetically throw it out there. It's October, right? We're still 6 months or so away from the draft. Let's hypothetically throw out there that you have the first pick and you want a left tackle. Well, if you know you're trading the first pick to whoever's going to pick 4th or 5th because they want a quarterback, okay. Now you got to say, we move down to 4. Say you move down to 4. Well, one of those picks in the top 4 is going to be a quarterback. One of those picks could be Travis Hunter, let's say. So now you're guaranteed one of the top 2 left tackles. So I would make that deal, get the extra picks, and I would crush it. But if you trade down to 7, 8, or 9, now you got to try to trade back up and you got to play games. I would not give up the opportunity to draft one of those top 2 tackles, Campbell or Banks. I'd be in on that. I would hope that I could trade down a couple of spots to get picks and still get one of those top 2 tackles. That, to me, is the dream scenario. Vitalix, $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10. Sounds silly, but it's a belief, a factor in player performance. Would the offense put in more effort, so to speak, if they believe their quarterback can actually make plays? I think the offense is putting in effort. I think there's effort out there. I do. I think these guys are playing hard. I think the offensive line issue is a talent issue. And I think it's a talent issue, a major talent issue, because you're down to backups in 3 of the 5 spots. And before then, you were even more desperate up front. But I think these guys they're playing. They're playing hard. I don't see a team that's not giving effort. I don't see a team that's tapping out just yet. As far as belief, like, hey, I believe in Alex Van Pelt. Yeah, it could get frustrating, and we saw Pop Douglas get animated. So that has happened. So you've got to be a professional and get through it. But that goes to my point, Vitalix, of if you lose the team. If these guys don't believe in Jacoby Brissett, then you've got to make the quarterback change because you can't lose the room. And the same question will have to be asked of Alex Van Pelt. If they don't believe in Alex Van Pelt, then you got to move on because you can't lose the room. I would still give Van Pelt some time, or at least a couple of games with Drake Maye, to see how much better he is with a better quarterback, a more talented quarterback. But I'm not waiting too long. JB Brown, super chat. Thanks, guys, for all the super chats. Thanks, JB, for the 10. If it turns out the only charge that sticks with Peppers is having a bag of blow, is that enough for the Pats to get out of his contract? Good question, JB. I'm not sure. I would conduct detrimental to the team. I'd imagine that it could get him out. There's got to be protections for the team. I don't think they differentiate how much, right? I don't think they're like, oh, if you get caught with a key, then you could get cut. If you don't get caught with a key, you get caught with a bag, a little, back in the day, used to call them dime bags for weed. I don't know what they call them. But, you get caught with a smaller amount, a trace amount of coke, then I don't think that's how it works. So I would imagine it would go under the, conduct detrimental to the team verbiage in the contract, and they could likely get out of it. The guaranteed money, I don't know how that would work. I would imagine that whatever Peppers has right now on him is what he keeps. Maybe the Patriots could fight for some of the other stuff that's, in the contract as you move forward. But I would have to imagine the team has some kind of protection in that contract to, if they can't get some of the money back, to be able to move on from Peppers without future damage. I'd also imagine, though, that his contract would stay on the books, which isn't that big of a deal because it's not a huge contract and they have a ton of cap space coming up anyway. So, but I would think they can move on from him. All right, we're going to get to the game soon. A lot of super chats. So it's a long podcast. Hopefully I'm keeping all of your attention. I appreciate every single one of you. But let's get to Jabril Peppers now. Oh, boy. I've said a lot that Jabril Peppers is one of my favorite players on this team. One of my favorite players on this team. And so when I woke up and I saw this, it hurt me in my gut. But I'm going to try to handle this as responsibly as possible, okay? So here's the story from NBC Sports Boston. Here's what they wrote. Braintree police said they responded to a disturbance at a residential address early Saturday morning. An investigation ensued and Peppers was arrested, charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, strangulation, and possession of cocaine. TMZ came out with a report after the initial stuff. Here's what TMZ writes. Officials wrote in documents that Peppers' girlfriend alleged the safety got violent with her at around 4 a.m. after she got a phone call during intercourse with him that he didn't like. Kind of a strange sentence, but it's there. Authorities say she stated he demanded she leave his apartment and pushed her out of the bedroom while they were both naked. Moments later, she claimed he, quote, put his hands on her neck and pushed her head against the wall, unquote. The whole time, she said he appeared, quote, out of his mind and had a serious expression, unquote. According to the documents, the woman stated the violence continued following the initial outburst when Peppers pushed her down a set of stairs. When authorities arrived on the scene, they say the woman had visible scratches on her kneecaps and her forehead area was red. Now, interesting that, again, one of the charges is strangulation. There is no indication, and I'm not telling you that Peppers is innocent or guilty. I just find it an interesting nugget with these documents is that, he's being charged with strangulation, But there's no mention of any marks on her neck. That's interesting. When officers took Peppers to a nearby jail, they said they located a clear plastic bag containing a white powder substance inside his wallet that the officers claim, that Peppers told them it was cocaine. So if Peppers told the cops it was coke in his wallet, he's going to be stuck with that charge. I don't think you can get out of that. That is clear possession. If he admitted it, it's clear possession. So he's going to get popped on that, no doubt. According to the documents, Peppers was adamant he did nothing wrong. Officials say he told them the woman became enraged with him when he refused to have unprotected sex with her. Authorities wrote, quote, according to Jabril, the woman kept acting erratic and refused to leave. She fell by herself on the stairs because she was intoxicated. He said that she was making those allegations up to destroy his career. Now, Peppers, his attorney, spoke with the media after the hearing this morning, and Peppers' attorney said, quote, we have evidence that completely contradicts the alleged victim's story, and I expect my client to be fully exonerated, unquote. A reporter asked the attorney, was it video evidence? The attorney said yes, and other evidence as well, unquote. That's a pretty clear statement. I'm not telling you that the attorney's telling us the truth, but the attorney came out and said that, hey, look, this didn't happen. We have evidence that it did not happen, and part of that evidence is video. Obviously, if there is video and there's video evidence of, let's say, she says he pushed me down the stairs and you see the video and she fell down the stairs because she was drunk, that's going to be easily figured out. You're going to solve that like that. So either she's lying or the lawyer's lying and they don't have video evidence of anything. But if you have video evidence, you document the evidence and you prove your case. So the lawyer is saying, Peppers' lawyer is saying, we've got evidence and that includes video evidence. We'll see. It goes without saying, these are horrendous allegations. And I have absolutely zero room in my life for any domestic violence, whether that's a male to a female to a male, a male to a male, a female to a female. Any kind of domestic violence is outski immediately. As much as I love Jabril Peppers, the football player, if he's guilty of beating this woman up, strangling her, pushing her down the stairs, he not only is gone, obviously, from the Patriots and should be, but he should face the consequences from the court system and legally be punished for what he has been found to do. No joke about that. Horrendous stuff to read. Brutal to read her side of the story and those allegations. If he's proven guilty, Jabril Peppers deserves everything that he gets. And I would imagine many of us or all of us would agree with that. Hopefully all of us. But he is innocent until proven guilty. And I believe in that. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he did wrong, aside from the coke. Again, if he admitted it was coke in his wallet, he's guilty of cocaine possession. There's no arguing that. But he says, his attorney says, they have evidence and they have video evidence. So you let this play out. And you see if they have evidence. And you see if they have video evidence. And then you move forward. But in this world, he's innocent until he's proven guilty. Now, do the Patriots, as JB asked, do they get rid of him because of the cocaine? They could. The Patriots could say, you were caught with coke, you're out. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I don't think you keep a guy in your locker room that just got caught with cocaine possession if you think he's got a major issue and, he can't get help. So that's a problem. And the NFL is going to have a problem with that. But he's innocent of the domestic violence stuff and the battery and the assault stuff. He's innocent until he's proven guilty, and we'll see. We'll see if they have actual evidence or if that's just lawyering, so to speak. I mean, I certainly hope that the domestic violence part is crap. But we don't know because we don't know these guys personally. Just because they're football players doesn't mean that we know them. Just because we love what they do on the field doesn't mean that we love them as human beings because we don't know. We don't know. And I think anybody rushing to judgment is being foolish, frankly, because we have no idea what actually happened in that residence until we get the full story and we have, evidence or no evidence of what happened. JB jumps in with a $5 super chat again. Thanks for the 5, JB. We're going to get to the football game in a minute. I am going to go after Alex Van Pelt. You don't want to miss it. Didn't Chung get popped for coke, or is my memory off? He was charged with cocaine possession, but it was dismissed. The drug charge was conditionally dismissed. Now, it happened in New Hampshire. Was it dismissed because of reasons? I don't know, but he was caught with coke. He was charged with it, but he was those charges were dismissed eventually. So that's the Patrick Chung story. All right. Don't forget, before we get into my thoughts on the game, and I'm going to hit them quickly, I'm going to go after Alex Van Pelt. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help us build traffic to this podcast. That's the way we do it. I hate just pushing this, but it's the only way that we can build the community. And, I'm not the greatest of just constantly like, oh, look at me promoting stuff, but it's part of this gig. I don't have a huge megaphone, obviously. So all that you guys can do to help us out, like, comment, subscribe, Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, and review. All right, Patriots, Dolphins. Let's get to actual football now. Patriots, look, it was a brutal game. That game stunk. It sucked. It blew. 15-10 final score. You had missed field goals. You had a bad field goal snap. You had tons of flags. The two teams were combined 6 for 24 on third down. Ugly. Let's get to Alex Van Pelt. I've been waiting for 47 minutes and 27 seconds to get to this point. I ripped Van Pelt last week. I'm going to rip him again this week, if not being even more harsh towards him. Alex Van Pelt sucked yesterday, much like he sucked against San Francisco. And some of the decisions by Van Pelt are inexcusable. They're unreasonable, borderline irresponsible. He has been brutal. There's no other way to put it. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because it had been 15 years since he called plays on a weekly basis for the 2009 Buffalo Bills. I gave him the benefit of the doubt to see if he can prove himself as good or terrible. And right now, I don't know how anybody watching this or listening to this, I don't know how any of you, because I certainly don't, I don't know how you could trust Alex Van Pelt to make the right play calls and run this offense correctly after what we have seen, especially the last 2 weeks. His situational play calling could not be worse. It is god-awful. And yes, Elliott Wolf, who hired Van Pelt, deserves all the criticism as well. If this doesn't turn around and Van Pelt is this bad the remainder of the year, it is obviously on Van Pelt, and it's also on Elliott Wolf and how they ran this operation. I'm not telling you they could go out and get Zach Robinson or some of those other sexy names, but if Wolf is, if AVP is this bad, then it doesn't matter. There was somebody out there that was better. And maybe you should have just hired Ben McAdoo for the gig and seen how he did. Alex Van Pelt, 12-yard line. You're on the 12-yard line with 3 timeouts left. You got all 3 of your timeouts. You're on the Miami 12-yard line. 1:13 left in the game. And Van Pelt doesn't run the football once. That alone, honestly, is a fireable offense. Now, I'm going to give him a shot because, again, it's 5 weeks in. But that series of play calling, 1:13 left, you have 3 timeouts, you're down by 5, you're at the opponent 12-yard line. There is absolutely zero reason to not run the football at least once, if not twice, in that situation. It's mind-boggling that anybody at the NFL level would call 4 straight passes. Now, I get it. Once you call a pass on first and second down, now you're stuck. You could still run on third down because get this, it was 1st and 10. You're at the 12. You could still get a first down. You didn't have to get in the end zone, Alex. All you need is 10 yards. Get a first down. Then you're 1st and goal from the 2-yard line. With all 3 of your timeouts, to throw pass was a ridiculous decision. And there's absolutely no reason to do that. There's no excuse to do that. And Alex Van Pelt should have walked into that locker room yesterday after that game and told everybody on that football team, I effed up. That's on me. My freaking goodness. Brutal. When you ran the football, you were successful all day. When you threw the football, you were not successful. But there you are. There you are. 1st and 10 from Miami's 12-yard line, a $1:13 left, all 3 timeouts, pass. Swell job, Alex. Going into the game, we talked about the ability of Antonio Gibson could cause some issues running up the middle, that there was a little bit of softness on that Miami defensive line against the run at times against Tennessee. Well, Van Pelt, they ran the football 7 times in the first half. What is this team's identity? I ask you, throw a comment in. What do you think this team's identity is? Because all offseason and all camp, we were told we're going to run the football. We're going to be a run-first team. That is going to be our identity. Everything offensively that we do will be based off the run. What happened to that? 7 first-half runs from your running backs yesterday? What happened to that identity that you supposedly had? Antonio Gibson had 1 carry the entire first half. 1 carry. He had 6 carries the entire game. He averaged 8.7 yards per carry. Now, riddle me this. You have a running back who's averaging almost 9 yards a carry. Don't you think you should give him the football more than 6 total times? What are we doing? He had 1 target in the pass game. Gibson is one of your better pass catchers. He's fantastic receiving running back. He's supposed to be this team's James White or a knockoff of James White. And you're not throwing him the football. You're not lining him up in the slot. You're not lining him up outside. What was the game plan? 34 pass attempts for 160 yards. The Patriots averaged 4.7 yards per pass attempt. 4.7. Yet they called 34 pass attempts. They averaged 7.8 yards per carry, but yet they called 18 runs. So you called 18 runs and you got 141 yards out of it. You called 34 passes and you got 160 yards out of it. I don't know if your running game is that much more efficient and you've been that much better on the ground. Why are you calling for almost twice as many passes? FFS. I try not to swear, but FFS. Terry Grant coming in. Thank you so much, Terry, with the $50 super chat. My goodness, Terry. Generosity continues to support this program. Just a big-time super chat. Thank you so much, Terry. Enjoy Virginia Beach. #FireAVP. Yeah, I'm heading down tomorrow. Start the drive tomorrow with the wife and the dog. That'll be fun. Down to Virginia Beach. Hopefully, we're down there by Wednesday morning, and hopefully I'm able to get the podcast live on Wednesday. If not, I'll certainly record something for all of you. So thank you, Terry, so much for that 50. So 34 pass attempts, 18 runs, even though you're running the ball a hell of a lot better than you're throwing the football. Why you would do that? Well, the only answer is because your offensive coordinator sucks. It's the only reason. Matt Doloff, 98.5 The Sports Up posted, the Patriots had the 6th highest pass play percentage in the league in week 5 so far, 65.5%. The Patriots, if you were wondering, they passed more than 71% of the time on their first fourth quarter drive, trying to protect a 10-9 lead. So they had a 10-9 lead heading into the fourth quarter. Their first fourth quarter drive, they threw the football more than 71% of the time, even though They had been much better at running the football than throwing the football. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Alex Van Pelt. It's mindless. It's mindless. Jerod Mayo, he stunk too. He stunk against San Francisco, and he stunk again yesterday. And he stunk against the Jets, and he stunk right before halftime of the Seahawks game, and then in the second half for the most part against the Seahawks. Jerod Mayo has not been good. Learning curve. I'm not telling you, forget about it. He's done. He's never going to be a good head coach. All I'm telling you is he has to be much better. And he's got to start figuring things out. Jerod Mayo told us that he's not a repeat offender. Oh, I disagree, because we have seen many offenses repeated by Jerod Mayo as the head coach so far. Many, many examples of this. Why don't you tell Alex Van Pelt to run the football, Jerod? You're the head coach. I know he's the head coach of the offense, but you have a headset on, and you can talk into this thing called the microphone, and you can tell your offensive coordinator, hey, guess what? There's 1:13 left in this game. We have all 3 timeouts. We're at the opponent 12-yard line. They haven't really been able to stop us with the run game. So, Alex, I would like you to call for at least 1 or 2 run plays. You can do that as the head coach, Jerod. You have that kind of responsibility. You can pop in and tell your offensive coordinator to run the football. 4th and 1 play, 12 men on the field. Yay. Is nobody counting on the sidelines? There's nobody's job to count how many guys you have on the field. 12 men on the field on a 4th and 1. Miami's going to punt. Brutal. You don't challenge the bad spot on the Hunter Henry. I think it was Henry on the Hunter Henry catch. So you fail. You fail. It seemed like the Patriots rushed up to the line of scrimmage. Not sure why, because Nick Leverett picked up that false start penalty by moving the football. They showed like one replay of the play, and then immediately the referee was making the penalty call on Nick Leverett to the arena, to the stadium. He's making the announcement on Nick Leverett's penalty. Why did you rush up to the line of scrimmage? Why don't you take your time, take a breath, and look at the replay? Why don't you allow for multiple replays, Jerod? It was obviously a terrible spot. You should have challenged the spot. You did not challenge the spot. You rushed up to the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and short. Nick Leverett moves the football. So now instead of challenging that spot and getting a first down, because I believe you would get a first down if you challenged that spot because it was that bad, but because you did not challenge the spot and you rushed to the line of scrimmage and your center moved the football before snapping it, you get a 5-yard penalty. You just turned a 1st and 10 likelihood to a 3rd and 6, and you single-handedly killed your offense and killed the drive. Great job by Jerod Mayo. What are we doing? Challenge the spot. All the flags. How about the repeat offender? Can we get a head coach and offensive coordinator? Can we get their heads together so they understand how to handle the clock before halftime? This was a carbon copy of what happened against Seattle. If you have PTSD from the awful clock management by Alex Van Pelt and Jerod Mayo at the end of the first half versus Seattle, get ready, because you saw the same thing play out yesterday. The Patriots had 2 timeouts in their pocket. They had 1:43 left on the clock. They run on a first down. They get like a 7 or 8 yard gain on the first down. You're looking at 2nd and short, right? You got like a 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. But for some reason, Alex Van Pelt and the offense, Jacoby Brissett is going, let's huddle. Let's huddle. You just picked up 8 yards. You got 2 timeouts. You got $1:43 on the clock. You can march down and try to score some points. You pop a 7 or 8 yard run on the first play. You have 2 options. Hurry up, get to the line of scrimmage, and throw a pass. Hurry up, get to the line of scrimmage, run the football, get a first down, call a timeout. No. There was no hurrying up to the line of scrimmage. There was no urgency. What did the Patriots do? They ran the football. They get 7 or 8 yards on that run, and then they don't snap the ball until there's 1:09 left. The Patriots wasted 34 seconds just chilling. They wasted 34 seconds so they can get into a huddle and do what? Call a pass play. I don't want to swear on these podcasts because YouTube will hurt you for that. But I could swear at least a half dozen times about this operation. You made the mistake against Seattle. You realize that you made the mistake against Seattle. Your clock management sucked. So a couple of weeks later, you do the same damn thing again. You have to pick a lane. You either try to run the clock out or you get aggressive and go and you try to score points. And I would suggest to you that since you picked up 7 or 8 yards on the first down and you're looking at like a 2nd and 2, I would actually suggest, hey, you just picked up 8 yards on the first down play call. You have 2 timeouts left. You still have 1:35 left on the clock. How about you try to score? How about you try to move the football in a game where neither team is going to score a lot of points? Why don't you try to at least effort your way down the field? No, waste 34 seconds and then throw the football. And what do you get? An incomplete pass. And then what do? You throw the football again. You have to play the clock or play the game. You run the football, you get 8 yards, and then you waste 34 seconds to go pass. Now, guess what? Miami doesn't have to spend their timeouts, you geniuses. And thankfully, Miami couldn't get out of its own way because they should have had a field goal before halftime. Bad coaching. Bad coaching. Discipline. Keon White headbutts the quarterback. You sit him for one play. Is that discipline? Keon White headbutted the quarterback after a horse collar, and he missed one play. Single-handedly cost your defense 30 yards. 30 yards. And he sat one play and was right back out there. Are you a disciplinarian? Oh, don't worry. He started Antonio Gibson. You know what that meant? That Ramondre Stevenson would get twice as many carries as Antonio Gibson, and Ramondre Stevenson would sit out all of one series to start this game. That was his benching. Did you like the Christian Ellis 3rd and 13 defensive pass interference? I love that. Did you enjoy the 12 penalty flags for 105 yards? Those were great. To me, it just seems like Jerod Mayo doesn't process things quickly. At least not yet. And again, learning curve, I know. It's been 5 games. But it doesn't mean I don't criticize the guy after being awful yesterday. If he's great, I will say he's great. But it seems like this coaching staff, especially the offensive coordinator and your head coach, it seems like they are reacting and not being proactive. It seems like they're never ahead on something. They're always behind. And I have to question the processing. The officiating, I don't get it. The poke play makes no sense to me. Look, it's the rule apparently. I'm not saying the call was wrong, but the rule sucks. I don't know why you have to get your second full foot down when you don't have to get that on a sideline play. So you can tap your feet on the sideline, but you can't tap your feet in the end zone because your momentum is going backwards. So you're supposed to be able to control your feet better if you're going backwards than to this. What are we doing? This is what happens when the NFL makes the rule book Bible thick and they want to make it subjective. And they want to keep sprinkling these rules. Who knew that wasn't a catch yet? I thought it was a catch. I tweeted out, toe down, touchdown. He got one foot down completely. He got his toes on the other foot down, inbounds. How is that not a touchdown? And because it's not a touchdown, I would suggest the NFL should go back and fix the damn rule. Because everywhere on earth, that should be a touchdown. You get a foot down, you get your toes down, that's a touchdown. Outrageous to sit there and say, oh, he's got to get his heel down with the second foot. Why? It's like the pylon. It's like the fumbling of the pylon. You can fumble the football out of bounds, but you keep the football, and it goes back to where you fumbled it from. But when you fumble it, if it happens to bounce over the pylon in the end zone, now the other team gets the football, and it's a touchback. None of it makes any sense. And that yesterday was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It made no sense to me. Again, apparently it was the right call, but that rule stinks. You should credit Jalen Polk for a touchdown. That's a tremendous play by Jalen Polk. And the fact that he is not credited for that touchdown catch is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I didn't understand the Vidarian Lowe hold, by the way. I tweeted out a video. I didn't see one single person on that offensive line hold. And that was a pretty big call. It's not why the Patriots lost. All right, let's get to some good before I say goodbye. This has been a long one. The defense. I thought the defense was okay most of the day. They obviously gave up a hideous game-winning drive for Miami. But look, you don't have Bentley. You don't have Duggar. You don't have Peppers. Jonathan Jones sat at the beginning of the game because he's dinged up, so you're playing with Marco Wilson. It's tough to fault the defense when you give up 15 points. Right? And I know they could have kicked 2 field goals, but if you're keeping an offense to 20 points or less, you're doing your job as a defense. Now, yes, again, they could have done better in that final drive, but they played a ton of football because your offense can't stay on the field, because your offense can't convert a third down. So I'm not going to sit here and nitpick and bitch about the defense. I'm sorry. Christian Gonzalez was awesome. Let's give Christian Gonzalez some love. Evan Lazar called him the best player on the Patriots film. Best player on the roster. Film was outstanding. Gonzalez defended Tyreek Hill on 21 pass routes. Tyreek Hill had 3 catches for 55 yards. Gonzalez had an interception and a pass breakup. He could have had 2 interceptions. He was more focused, and he said this in the postgame. He was more focused on the return than tucking that football in when he picked it off in the end zone. But Gonzalez was tremendous. Hill and Waddle against Gonzalez. 7 targets, 4 catches, 45 yards. Christian Gonzalez is a freaking stud. The run game was excellent. Evan Lazar wrote, the Patriots running back duo combined for 141 yards. They also had plus 58 rushing yards over expectation. New England had it rolling with gap and zone schemes, showing some real improvements on outside zone runs. Kayshon Boutte had a great block downfield on the Mondre touchdown run. The run game was excellent. Shout out to the O-line. Shout out to the backs. Pop Douglas was good. 6 catches, 59 yards. It could have had an even bigger day if Jacoby Brissett could have thrown an accurate pass downfield because he was wide-ass open. Might have ended up with a touchdown on that play. And I also think we should give Marte Mapu some love. We should give Marte Mapu some love. He played every single snap for the defense. I mean, that's his first game. He's been out all year long, didn't play a lot last year. He goes out there and he plays every snap, and he had the green dot, and he wasn't terrible. Now, a couple hiccups. But given the circumstances, I thought, Marte Mapu, he deserves credit for the way he played yesterday. It's a good job by him. He could have completely crapped his pants, and he didn't. All right, don't forget to hit that thumbs up for us. Like, comment, and subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, my friends, rate and review. But those likes and those comments, that's how we drive the algorithm right out the window at YouTube. Heading down to Virginia Beach this week for the next week or so, but there will be content. Might have to record a podcast or 2, but every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m., right here on the YouTube channel. And Y2K Kane says special teams was also good. Yeah, I mean, you had the missed field goal for Joey Sly, right? You had the too many men on the field on the 4th down on the punt coverage. But there also was some good. There was also some good from the special teams. All right, that'll do it. Hour and 10 minutes. I'm pretty gassed. I'll talk to you guys on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If something breaks, if Drake Maye is named the starter, you can bet your tuk-tuk will be right here to talk about it. I appreciate every single one of you. And thank you for helping out the show by watching, listening, commenting, liking, and, of course, subscribing. This has been The Nick Cattle Show.